further upstream is the city of Fuling, with a population of 79,000. On one of the main shopping streets, a sign indicates how high the reservoir's waters will be when the dam is completed. It serves as a constant reminder to the people that not much of their city will survive for long. Within 2 years, they will be relocated to New Fuling, a new town being built higher in the hills. It is typical of the cities of New China, changing fast as the whole country develops as a world power. 13 modern cities like this are to be swept away, and all their residents moved. These men and women will have to relocate the businesses they've worked so hard to build up. The problems of moving this many people are considered by many insurmountable. The people whose lives will change most will not be the city dwellers, but those who live along the fertile banks of the Yangtze. Away from the noise and pollution of the industrial areas of the Yangtze, an ancient way of life survives. Yungyang Old Town is one of 4,000 doomed hill villages that are scarcely touched by the modern world. The women spin yarn, as has been done for centuries. A kind of rural community that no longer truly exists in the Western world. The miller grinds winter corn and summer rice for his neighbors on the same millstones that his grandfather and great-grandfather used before him. Housewives use the traditional wok for cooking. The village is almost self-sufficient, producing its own food, making its own clothes. The streets have never heard the sound of motorized traffic. It's a unique way of life. Through self-sufficiency, this village has survived centuries of turmoil. This is where the ancestors have been worshipped for generations. This is where the ancient village tree has stood for centuries. This is the time-hallowed ground that now has to be abandoned forever. The miller and his wife are in the process of moving to Yungyang New Town, 500 yards up the hill. Here they will have to start again, without any reminders of their past. New luxuries like running water are welcome, but many people complain that they will miss the sense of community they once enjoyed in their ancient villages. Signs indicating the height of the dam pepper the Three Gorges area. Everything below this bridge will be underwater. Even the top of the bridge itself will be below the waterline when the dam is complete and the reservoir full. Close by, Daqiang will be completely underwater. When the reservoir is filled, thousands in towns like this will have to be relocated. This town has existed for 2,000 years. Last rebuilt in the 15th century, it's one of China's best preserved ancient towns. People here rarely leave the village and surrounding fields. It has always been a close and happy community, but now people are worried about their future. This is the true heart of China, a traditional way of life that has survived war, revolution, and famine. It's hard for people who live like this to accept that within... This has produced a torrent of criticism in China, a land of newly acquired freedoms.
We
do not respond to political criticism. China needs this project economically and also to prevent natural disasters. In the final analysis, the Three Gorges project is between man and nature. And we can only use scientific methods to solve the problems.
But out on the cutting edge, solving problems isn't always easy. And if they were to make a mistake, the consequences wouldn't bear thinking about.
Every engineer who's in the dam building business is concerned about dam safety, and they take it very seriously because they know the consequences are very great. It's a very high-risk venture. In the United States, we had a very large dam failure in the 1970s. The Teton Dam in Idaho was constructed, they began to fill it, and as they filled it, it gave way, and people were killed, and millions of dollars worth of damage were incurred.
On the dam, we have sluice gates to lower the level inside the reservoir, which is more than enough to eliminate the risk of flood disaster. The biggest flow in the Yangtze in flood has been around 70,000 cubic meters this century. But my design allows for 110,000, and we have allowed a safety margin above that. At that, you can be absolutely sure this dam is safe.
Even if the dam is safe, some ecologists and engineers point to another problem: how to deal with silt. Silt is fine particles. In a fast-flowing river, it provides valuable nutrients to the soil as it flows out to the sea. But when it flows into a still body of water, it can build up dangerously. Chinese engineers say the silt will be periodically flushed out through special gates in the dam. For smaller reservoirs, this is standard. But if this isn't possible for the vast Three Gorges Reservoir, there is a real danger of buildup which could have enormous implications for shipping and flood control along the Yangtze. Canadian dam expert Grey-Ann Ryder explains her concerns about the removal of silt from a reservoir so large.
The problem, though, is the Three Gorges Reservoir is going to be the length of Lake Superior. And most of the silt is going to start piling up at the furthermost end of the reservoir. So up where the towns are hundreds of kilometers upstream, they're going to have silt starting to build up. When the silt starts to pile up at the upper end of the reservoir, there's very little that the dam operators can do. with that problem. And people have predicted that this is going to create a huge flooding problem upstream. So floods are going to occur more frequently upstream than they did in the past.
But there could be an even more terrifying risk than huge floods. Very large dams have been known to trigger earthquakes because of their weight pressing down on the Earth's crust. Earthquakes created these mountains millions of years ago, and earthquakes could strike again tomorrow, as Patricia Adams knows only too well.
The reservoir area is straddling a fault line, so there is a real chance that the underlying foundation of the dam underneath the reservoir is not as stable as the engineers are hoping and assuming. If the dam failed, there would be a massive tidal wave that would move down the Yangtze, and it would lead to the death of, I would estimate, millions, and it would certainly lead to the destruction of billions of dollars worth of assets, and to the long-term disability of the country.
But the Chinese are sure that the risks have been thoroughly calculated, and they are well on their way in this amazing effort to tame Mother Nature. This building project today is historically unprecedented. It will be one of the few man-made structures visible from space. But one aspect of this giant undertaking has fundamental consequences for every Chinese person, a loss that is irreplaceable.
One of the most devastating impacts in China for the politics of the project have been the destruction of the antiquities. The Chinese take great pride in the antiquities that have been discovered and that are in the path of the dam. And it is impossible for archaeologists to save all of the sites. And there is a growing concern that we will be destroying valuable historical artifacts that are fundamentally important to the Chinese people. I mean, if they're 100 feet below the surface of a large lake, it's very difficult to go down and see them. I think the loss of those antiquities affects the Chinese psyche. It affects the soul of China. And that is going to diminish support for the dam. People begin to say, now why is it we're doing this? Why is it we're destroying part of our heritage? And if the answer is just to provide flood control to a small portion of the country, people in the rest of the country say, this doesn't make any sense. And common sense usually wins.
The dam promises prosperity and a catapulting of a great nation into the future, as well as providing protection from the floods that have caused death and destruction since man first walked on the shores of the Yangtze. But what is for certain is the soul and spirit of China will survive. The river that has been called the Great Dragon, since stories have been told around village fires, will not easily be tamed. But if, as the Chinese people believe with a passion that can never be underestimated, the dam is successful, then a great nation will have truly built a wonder for the next millennium. A spectacular modern monument to man's ingenuity.